should I include hobbies that can be profitable in my retirement plan? So this per this in this question it says I love collecting baseball cards, and from time to time I sell these cards for a profit. And what should I do with this in my plan, and how should I report to the IRS?
Well, the IRS question's the easiest one. You probably should report it in some
Hmm.
form or fashion. I mean, my outlook on taxes is just I don't want to poke the bear personally. I'd be very conservative there, but everybody's different. I remember once I had a client tell me that when he submits his taxes, he calls it his bid.
Hmm.
This is my bid. This is what I think I owe. And if he doesn't hear anything back, then he just assumes the IRS, has accepted his bid. So I don't have time for an audit, so I'm not going to do that. But nonetheless, from the IRS standpoint, you want to report these. Yeah, actually, it's kind of amazing. Collectibles have gone bananas. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
So I had a friend's dad. So my friends and me, when we were small, we collected Pokemon cards, and my friend found a box of these first edition Pokemon cards in the attic, and so he threw it up on eBay, and he sold them individual packs, and in the end, he came out with $86,000 of.
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. But the crazy part now is, eBay and PayPal, they're reporting directly to the IRS. So
Yeah.
you have to be careful too that you make sure that you report your sales. Otherwise, they're going to come for their money.
Yeah, treat it like a business, really. I mean, in the sense of, hey, I made this profit on these sales, and I think you'll do fine as far as that goes. Yeah, it goes. It's everywhere, right? I mean, it's golf clubs, old golf clubs. It's cars, paintings, of course. Have always had that. Not everything makes money, so that's
Hmm.
one of the difficulties of it. It's sort of like the stock market. Not every stock is great, so you kind of have to know what you're doing. But yeah, and the marketplace is global now, which really does open up the doors for a lot more potential customers. Yeah, you had Pokemon cards before, right? I mean, trying to sell them, maybe in a swap meet or something, right?
Hmm.
You get out on eBay, or some of these big, platforms. That's kind of changed that whole collectibles arena. My son was telling me about people doing shoes, sneakers.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's like a huge aspect of what we had the NFTs, right, which was a collectible digital token, essentially a picture of some type that you got, the code to. Those, peaked maybe,
Yeah.
but somebody made money on them
Hmm.
somewhere in there. So. Yeah, I mean, as part of strategy for your retirement plan, maybe, if you really wanted to work at it, right, you could be hunting around for buying Poke cards at a certain price and hopefully being able to sell them at a higher price. I mean, that's essentially what we do with the stock market. I
Hmm.
mean, we're hunting, looking and saying, okay, what's going to buy at this, and Apple's going to turn into, an even bigger company and worth more than it is now. I don't have any problem with that, actually. I think, especially if it's something you enjoy doing. And there's a lot of avenues now to do that. So I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah. As long as you're not kind of selling the future. That's the one caveat I would say.
Yeah.
If you're not, if this is a small hobby, saying you're like putting $5,000, $10,000, which isn't going to make or break your retirement into
Right.
this hobby,
Yep.
then it's totally fine. It's where I become concerned is when you start to like take that, 50, $100,000 and you report, and if you were to lose it all, what would happen to your plan? And so there's a balance, can this hobby be profitable? Yes. Is it going to make or break my plan if it goes badly? That's one question you have to ask yourself.
Yeah. I start small. If it works, plow the profits back into it and just keep growing it, and eventually you could take some profits out. But if it doesn't work, you don't lose a lot, right? I mean, that's a lot. That's what we do a lot of times with more aggressive investments. Start small and just see what happens. And if it continues to do well, we kind of just let it grow.
Hmm.
So, if you're going to collect cards, or I have a client collects gold coins, pretty expensive,
Hmm.
and so, you have to have a net worth that's pretty high to say that you can start small there, because a lot of those are $5,000 to $20,000 per coin.
Hmm.
I think it's an interesting hobby in the sense that gold has a inflationary hedge aspect to it, and it's minted, right?
Yep.
So that could do quite well, actually, but a much more expensive hobby. And of course, you get into cars, you get the same thing.
Yeah.
Cars have done pretty well over the years, but pretty high buy-in price. Unless you're going to do it yourself, like a fix-up thing. Even that is going to cost you something. But that's nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, I did have a client that used to do Mustangs. So that's one of the hobbies he had, that he'd fix up a Mustang, find one that was in bad shape, fix it up, resell it, and keep the differential. And he just kept going. And so yeah, there's lots of ways of doing that. I think it could be fun.
Yeah, and always remember that this is a hobby that brings enjoyment. And so when you kind of add the money aspect, if you stop to have enjoyment, maybe it's time to take a step back.
Yeah.
Because I had a friend that loved fantasy baseball, and he loves baseball, but then it became like a kind of a second job for him when he played fantasy baseball. He was making money off of it.
Yeah.
But then he stopped rooting for his team and was only looking for the players to do well. And so he lost that joy. And so for collectibles, it's a hobby first, then you should have that joy from it.
Yeah, that's a good story, because I got into fantasy football when it first came out, and I was pulling up all these spreadsheets and everything, and I kept winning. I won and won, and then I started playing, in the bigger money leagues. I had, 1 year where I had to report a bunch on my tax return and what have you. But my wife always used to laugh at me. She says, "You're still only making about $1 an hour," and it just kind of took over. And then the things that I was doing in downloading all this data and putting it together myself is now available. Everybody has that. But back then they didn't. So I kind of had a little bit of an edge. But yeah, it got to be a bit much. I was getting up too early to see what happened with my trades or whatever. Yeah, it's got to be something that's enjoyable first, and then life is short. So yeah, that makes sense.